The agonizing wait is finally over. Tom Clancy's The Division 2 is here, and it's fair to say that the early consensus from fans and critics alike is that it's both a solid improvement over the fun but flawed original and a great looter shooter in general. But as with so many open world squad-based multiplayer titles, The Division 2 is rather complex and overwhelms you with info in its introductory hours. The game does a mostly great job of laying out its menus and systems in a fairly clear and concise fashion, but there are some aspects that Ubisoft doesn't really explain all that well. But fear not, because having spent a hefty chunk of time with the game in its early launch period, we've rustled up a list of everything that players both new and old should take heed of before venturing out into The Division 2's post-apocalyptic version of Washington, DC. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and this is The Division 2 10 tips and tricks the game doesn't tell you. Number 10, you can dodge roll while reloading. It can always prove quite frustrating getting caught short with a lengthy gun reload in the heat of battle, forcing you to either flee for cover or, if there's no cover nearby, tough it out and hope for the best. But you can make life easier for yourself by combining the dodge roll move with the reload for most weapons and keep a constant stream of bullets in your mag. To perform this trick, wait until your reload bar is about 2/3 full and then perform the roll. This will allow you to keep moving and basically be impervious to gunfire while your gun completes reloading. And of course, as soon as the roll is completed, you'll have a full clip and be ready to go. There is a slight knack to it, as rolling too early will cancel the reload animation entirely and force you to start all over again, leaving you vulnerable to gunfire once the roll is completed. I did that a couple of times, and trust me, all your friends will completely laugh at you. But it doesn't take too long to get into the habit of it, and it can mean the difference between life and death during some particularly gnarly gunfights. Number 9, unlock the ACCOLADE perks first. Shortly after you begin playing, you'll unlock the perks menu, which can be accessed from the Quartermaster. Perks are effectively power-ups that can be unlocked with the SHD tech that you'll gather from completing missions throughout The Division 2, though it goes without saying that some are more useful than others during the early hours of the game. After unlocking the mandatory weapon slot upgrade perk, you'll be free to tackle the rest however you wish. But it's advisable to unlock all 5 tiers of the ACCOLADE perk first, as it will grant you bonus XP for a wide variety of activities, such as getting headshot kills, multi-kills, environmental kills, and so on. With all 5 tiers unlocked, this can add a not insignificant amount of XP to intense firefights and basically make leveling less of a grind. The restock perk is also pretty handy, but ACCOLADE offers some immediately noticeable gains, especially if you've got enough SHD tech points banked up to unlock them all within the first couple of hours. Number 8, side missions scale to your level, so save them for later. With there being a decent amount of level spacing between the main story missions, you might be tempted to dip into some of the side missions early on to ensure that you're appropriately leveled and geared up for the fight ahead. However, it's worth knowing that side missions will fully scale XP to your current level, and so there's a clear incentive to hold fire on these activities until much later in the game, when climbing up the ranks starts to feel like more of a slog. Of course, the occasional side mission played at a lower level won't hurt and will give you a nice boost to your gear, but honestly, you're better off just rinsing the countless events and encounters scattered throughout the world instead if you wish to hoover up some extra XP. Obviously, don't grind yourself to death, but just think about all the sick weapons and items that'll be waiting for you later on. Number 7, avoid relying on fast travel. Though The Division 2 has a fantastic fast travel system, which allows players to visit previous locations at the press of a button following some surprisingly reasonable loading times, of course, you're advised to avoid this temptation wherever possible. You see, the game's world is absolutely littered with things to do, from control points to random events, not to mention all of the loot and collectibles littered around pretty much every square inch of DC. This will not only help ensure a steady stream of XP is coming in, but it'll also give you a wealth of materials for crafting. Relying on fast travel will allow you to quickly blast through the game's critical path, but you'll not only miss out on a ton of content populating the world, but also much of the game's rich stop and smell the roses atmosphere. Number 6, the drone is the best skill. In addition to perks, there are also 8 skills available to unlock and augment, from additional offensive weaponry to tech intended to heal you and your teammates in a moment of desperation desperation. Firstly, don't bother with the pulse skill right off the bat. It may look cool and we've all got a certain nostalgic fondness from the first game, but it's surprisingly ineffective during most engagements throughout the game and ultimately a waste of early resources. Now, there are a number of useful skills, though the best is easily the drone, especially once you unlock the Fixer variation, which will track your team and provide constant healing during firefights. The turret and the chem launcher, which we'll get to later on, are also fully worth unlocking, though the drone offers the most immediate boost from the jump, especially if you're playing solo and need all the help you can get, which, trust me, I absolutely did. Those guys with sticks would just come around and twat me in the face and I'd be dead. Number 5, use your junk gear for projects. The Division 2 is extremely generous when it comes to loot. Even the most benign firefight will typically shower you with a surplus of gear, which you can take to a vendor and sell or salvage for materials. But it's often not advisable to do this, as excess gear can instead be handed in to the project's officer at the base of operations and various settlements. This can result not only in huge XP gains, but also other rewards such as new blueprints and new missions. Helpfully, the donate all junk prompt will automatically hand over all your junk, which can plug into the various projects rather than you having to do it manually. Given how easy it is to actually bypass the projects part of the game entirely, this is definitely worth keeping in mind rather than getting into the habit of quickly flogging or salvaging all of your wares after each and every mission. For my first couple of hours, I was just selling everything for slightly better loot that I'd find in the world anyway. This is a much better use of your time. Number 4, visit all the safe houses. The Division 2's Washington, D.C. is of course comprised of a number of distinct districts, and anytime you enter a new area, it's absolutely vital to first visit the safe house in the region. Not only will this give you a new fast travel location, though again, don't rely on them, but it will also allow you to restock, unlock some new challenges, and illustrate points of interest which can lead to greater XP and loot rewards. This should basically be the first thing you do every single time you enter a new area, because it helps each zone feel more alive and immediately opens up your opportunities moving forward. This is a Ubisoft game after all, and while climbable towers are a thing of the past, you still need to head to these zones every time you enter a new area. Number 3, dismantle skills to halve their cooldown time. Now this is a really neat trick. Anytime you use a skill, you'll notice that a cooldown timer will appear, preventing you from reusing said skill for up to a couple of minutes at a time. But you can do yourself a favor by manually dismantling the skill before it expires by holding down the deploy button for just a few seconds, which will in turn halve the amount of time the cooldown actually takes. It honestly feels like a little bit of a cheat considering the edge it actually gives players during combat, especially in relation to the turret, but given that it was also a feature in the first game, it doesn't seem like Ubisoft will be patching it out anytime soon, and thank God. Number 2, the chemical launcher flushes enemies out of cover. As mentioned earlier, while you should immediately unlock the drone and start leveling up that skill, you'll quickly come to rely on both that and the chemical launcher to make sure you never get yourself in a sticky situation ever again. Because the Division is essentially a cover-based shooter, and you're going to find yourself in some precarious situations where hunkered down enemies keep taking pot shots at you from high above. Instead of waiting for them to pop out and potentially getting hit yourself, one shot with this bad boy will not only damage them, but force them out of cover so then you can riddle them with bullets. It's a versatile weapon, and you pretty much only have to aim in their general direction to make sure they get a little splash of the devil's juice on them in order to send them running. Hell, you could even maximize your healing capabilities by swapping out the offensive rounds for the healing ones and shoot that bad boy at your own feet. You might not need that if someone else is using a healing drone, but if you're playing on your own, it could come in handy. Number 1, cover movement can be altered in the menu. The Division 2 gives players a decent amount of control over how exactly they play the game, particularly as it pertains to player maneuverability. Though the game's cover mechanics are pretty rock solid, the auto movement around corners isn't for everyone, as it can result in players accidentally removing themselves from cover during combat and then getting fired upon. Again, I've done this plenty, accidentally pushing around the corner of a pillar just to get shot at by an enemy and looking like a right tit in doing so. But players like me need fear not, because the game's controls menu has the option move around cover with button press, which, if toggled on, requires players to press a button before turning around an object. For those who've been caught short by the automatic traversal in the past, this is a godsend and an easy way to cut down on a potential frustration during crowded higher level battles. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Have these tips and tricks been at all helpful, and which ones have I missed here? And most importantly, are you actually enjoying The Division 2? Because I am, although I really enjoyed the first one as well. Either way, while you're there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, thank you for watching. I've been Josh, you've been watching WhatCulture, and I'll see you soon. Bye.